Hello, my name is Jamie Burchell, and you are listening to and or watching our podcast called Wormhole Pinball
Wormhole
Presents.
Pinball Presents.
Wormhole Pinball Presents. Today, I'm very, very excited to be joined by two great individuals. Today, I'm really excited to be joined by a very special guest.
And today, I'm very excited to be joined by two awesome guests all the way from Arizona.
Hello, my name is Jamie Burchell, and welcome to episode 39, I can't believe that, of our podcast we call Wormhole Pinball Presents, a podcast we started to highlight those in pinball and arcades. First, I'd like to introduce my co-hosts today, Erin Winnick Anthony. Erin, thank you so much for being with us here today. I needed backup this week.
Okay. Well, happy to be here for it.
We're joined by a pinball podcasting pioneer, if you will, and creator of Coast Pinball Podcast. Welcome to the Wormhole virtually, Nate Shivers. Thank you so much, Nate.
Hey, thank you for inviting me on. This is fun. I'm scared a little bit. I'm usually not answering the questions.
I'm normally asking them.
No,
usually
it's
how
good.
it goes.
I haven't done, this is my 39th. I haven't done another podcast yet either, so I'll be freaked out if I ever do one. So we'll see.
There you go. It'll happen. You've got a lot of content out. You're like cranking stuff out. Your Barracuda video popped up on my feed today. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet.
Oh, that's neat because the ball literally stopped on. We watch it because it's a freak of no way anyone could ever emulate where that ball wound up hanging out and what Corey did with it. Yeah, that's our Monday night stream. So we are a Wormhole. We're a club in Houston, Texas, and Erin had found us years ago, and we adopted her on Twitch, and we sucked you in the world of pinball pretty quick.
Absolutely, yeah. It's been good though. Been happy to be sucked into the wormhole. So,
and so we're growing, and we're going to be building we have a 13,000 square foot building, Nate, in downtown Houston that we're going to put about 125 pins there.
That's great,
and it'll be an extension of our museum and such. So, all right, as always, these interviews are very informal. Erin, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, absolutely. I know we often start with origin stories and things on the podcast here. So I know you grew up in Arizona and California and played when you were younger, but when did you actually start playing pinball competitively? Like, how'd you make that leap from casual to tournament player?
I think I was in the group. There was like a wave of people that came back to pinball that maybe played it when they were young. And then as I think the pinball, I don't know, what do you call it? The community, the hobby, the buying, selling, trading of games started to really, spur back up again. I got into that and then found the internet forums and the other podcasts that were out there. And it was all just kind of one big thing. And then, before I really started my show, I had gone to some local tournaments and realized how bad I was at pinball. And so bought more games and tried to practice more. But once I started my show, I started meeting people who are really like the diehards. Because, listen, you guys are with me. If you're doing this, listening to this, being part of this, you must really, really, really be into pinball. So I met some of those people, and they would often say, oh, hey, are you coming to this? Are you going to this? And it went from, what is that, to, yeah, I'll be there. And the old, I think it's funny, the Stern toppers that say it's more fun to compete. It was kind of true on some level, and it's not always more fun to compete, but I found an appreciation for a variety of games, and I met a lot of people and forged some really great relationships through tournaments and parties and things like that. So I guess that was all in my years are fuzzy on this stuff, 2012, I guess, something like that, in that era. And then, built up to go to bigger tournaments, and then, really until I moved, and then the pandemic even further, it was one of my favorite things, was like big tournaments. And I'm actually pretty jealous I'm not living in the United States anymore. I'm living in Amsterdam in the Netherlands now, because there's just a lot less opportunity here than what I see happening in the US. It's almost like I don't look sometimes. Like when Papa announced they were doing a version of Papa this year, and Pinburg, obviously, it was all just sort of like, yeah, I can't go to those. That won't work for me. So I almost broke my heart a little bit.
Oh, yeah, it just feels more inaccessible. Well, do you still play competitive pinball in any way out there?
I haven't played much at all. The pandemic really, I had gone to a few tournaments here and there. They do this great tournament here in the Netherlands called the Dutch Pinball Open. It's a show, and it has a really good tournament. I played in that. It's been a few years, probably been 5, 6 years since I played in that, and I was pretty rusty. I wasn't playing a lot on location, so my walk up to the game and go skills were really bad, and it was fun though. Like it was really fun, and I looked, and I see some of the tournaments. Like there's the UK tournament coming up in a few weeks. Is that the UK? I feel bad. I don't know the name of this tournament. UK Pinball Open. Oh, what is that one?
Sounds right, but I'm not sure what's the one coming up now. Jamie, do you know?
Oh, no.
My apologies, but
I'll
I've
look it
heard
up.
nothing but good things about it, and I saw that there's names of people I like and admire going to that tournament.
Cool.
I don't think I could make it over there, but I thought about it. I was looking at it. So I wouldn't say I don't play anymore. It's been a long time since I've done
Yeah,
much.
you're looking for the right opportunity to get back. I got you. So
I would love to, yeah.
We need to get you back on that horse.
I considered for a while, the whole reason that I got into pinball from the podcasting and creative side of it was really, I played in bands when I was younger. I was always in bands and making music and such. And then I moved to California for jobs and didn't have like a network and didn't have what I thought was time. And I thought maybe I was getting too old, which is ridiculous because now I have a band and I'm older. But I needed creative outlets still, and I think the podcast became a creative outlet. It became, what do I do with this energy and things I want to, I loved pinball. Okay, great. I'm buying pinball machines. I'm going to play pinball. I'm driving ridiculous, distances to play pinball. What else? And I was consuming all these podcasts that there were, which at the time wasn't a whole lot. It was the Pinball Podcast, which I still think those guys are great. There was the old Silverball podcast, and then there was like a couple things here and there popping up. And I just was running out of stuff to listen to. And I thought, well, if I'm running out of stuff to listen to, there's probably other people running out of stuff to listen to. I like to talk, as you guys are finding out very quickly here in this interview. And I just started my own. I just said, I can do this too. And I just went full into it. So it was really just sort of like me entertaining myself. And then people started listening, and it just rolled on top of itself. And I don't even know what the original question was, but there we go.
no, you answered it.
You answered it. Absolutely. Because Erin was going to ask, and I'll take this one, Erin, from you. I mean, you did start Coast to Coast in 2013. Wow.
2013, yeah.
Huh.
It was really weird because I didn't know what I didn't know. Like I knew what I had learned, buying and selling some games. I'd probably traded maybe half a dozen games, 10 games at the most by that point, just buying a Party Zone, playing it till I'm sick of it, selling the Party Zone, buying a Street Fighter 2, getting sick of it very quickly, buying a Twilight Zone thinking this is the greatest thing I'll ever buy, ever. And then, going from there, buying a Judge Dredd and having no space left in my office. And it was an interesting time because there were people flocking to it. And my show did that too. I quickly found out that I didn't know everything and I needed to still learn. So I did a lot. I researched and studied and read and talked to people and picked people's brains about not just the history, but the current and what was happening. And you could see, games would sell out really fast and limited editions were getting flipped for tons of money. And there was this speculation. And then you had some of the early, really the homebrew scene started just bubbling up and taking off. So people wanted to talk about it. And podcasts, not just mine, but podcasts became like one of the good ways to do that because it was a growing format of entertainment. It had been around a long time, but it was a way people could listen and talk to. I wish there had been more video aspect, and it's something, in 2013, I didn't know a lot about video, maybe. I wish I had the vision of being able to leverage YouTube, and maybe YouTube wasn't as good back then as it is now. But I wish I had a little bit more vision on it because I had some ideas, and I even worked with Stern later on some of those ideas, and I still think some of those ideas could work. Somebody wanted to go through the effort. But I wish that the podcast was simple because I grew up loving radio. I loved radio. I
love radio too.
I hate that radio's kind of dead.
I know.
It's kind of dead.
What did you grow up listening to? What was was there a certain program that you listened to on the radio, or just any programs?
So a couple things. When I was really young, my father, he was in construction and he ran a couple construction companies, did some independent work. and he would travel a lot of times, like far distances, and he would drive a lot of times to go to these jobs, and I would just go with him. And I don't even know, I just didn't go to school or what, but I would just go, and we would listen to talk radio a lot of times. Just he's trying to stay awake, driving, and whatever. Or we'd listen to sports, listen to baseball, basketball on the radio. But Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell, the original, was fascinating to me. And I remember being like, probably 9 or 10 years old and laying in the back seat of a car, traveling, long ways with the moon out and the stars, and it's night, it's probably, midnight at 1 a.m, listening to Coast AM, Art Bell talking about aliens and the paranormal and all these things. And I was just obsessed with it. And I thought it was so cool. So when it came time all these years, because listen, I listened to a lot of radio. I loved music. I was 10 years old listening to Def Leppard and Bon Jovi and just deep into it. But the idea of just talking about stuff and telling stories on radio was always really fascinating to me. So when you fast forward to me in 2013 saying, I want to do a pinball thing, and I was traveling at the time for my job. I was living in San Diego, but I was working, my sales territory was on the East Coast, New York through New England. I was literally going coast to coast, and I thought, oh my gosh, this could be like my little nod to the Coast to Coast AM show that I used to love and still did love, even when they changed hosts and shifted direction, and also to what I was doing in life at the time, where I was able to see a lot of stuff all over the country. So that's kind of that was. But radio, I love radio, and it's a shame. But I remember I was in Arizona. I went to Arizona State, and I joined their radio programs. They have a college radio, like a super low output radio station. I don't know if it is even still there, but you could only get it right around the campus area. And I joined the program, and I got to do like a show a week where I'd play the music that I wanted to play. It was really
fun.
cool. And then I met some DJs. I had a band that was fairly popular in the Phoenix, Tempe area. And I was talking to this DJ at this show that we played, and his radio station was hosting the show. And I told him, I said, man, I would love to get into radio. He goes, oh, you've got the voice for it. And I'm like, thanks, man, I'd love to do it. He goes, don't get into radio. Radio's dead. And he just like crushed me. He's like, dude, we're all broke. The internet's going to put radio out. And I'm like, the internet? It's like, 1999. And he's like, yeah, you don't want to get into radio. This is a terrible idea. And I just was like, oh, okay. And that put a weird thing in my head after that. I'm like, yeah, radio's going to die, which it kind of has.
Right.
But yeah, I miss radio. But I see what you guys are doing and what others are doing. And I love the video side of it also, because I have a YouTube thing, a travel YouTube thing now with my girlfriend, and we've grown it, and it's gotten pretty good. And it's a lot of fun. And we go and find pinball whenever we can. And I get a lot of hate from people because it was originally the Coast to Coast Pinball YouTube channel that got repurposed. Sorry. And people still get it, and they go, play more pinball. Why aren't you playing more pinball? And I'm like, I'm looking for it, but there isn't as much pinball in Europe, unfortunately, as there is in the United States. So, okay, I'll shut up.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
I think people would appreciate a guide to pinball in Europe, though. Like, if you actually want to play, where do you go? I think you could get some good views on that.
It's out there. The best place I've been to was, what? I want to yell at my girlfriend, where do we play? I'm forgetting. There was a really great pinball museum it was in Budapest, Hungary. Awesome.
Nice.
Awesome. They had classics. They had up to date, everything with Stern and Jersey Jack. And that was one of the best places. In Rotterdam, the Netherlands, 45 minutes from where I'm sitting, there's the Dutch Pinball Museum. It's just fantastic. Great people, great games. He gets the latest games in. It's in an awesome old, hundreds-year-old building in the Netherlands. I just don't get down there enough, unfortunately. But yeah, it's not as good here. It is not as good in Europe. There's a lack of space, and it's tough because I would love to do more content based around it. But it would be difficult, I think. And I think that's why you don't see it, is because it's very spread out and thinned out. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Last question for me before Erin, about doing a podcast. Did it scratch that itch, is a phrase I like to use? Did it just scratch the itch of saying, I didn't get into radio. Yeah, I have music bands and such, but did it scratch the itch, the podcast of wanting to be on the radio?
I think so. I think at times it certainly did. You've probably dealt with, so you put yourself out there, right? And I put myself out into Pinball 2013, where you had a lot of like, there was this like tension I felt in the community where someone who was newer in their scene was coming into it, and there's a little bit of gatekeeping going on, and a little bit of like, you're ruining it, you guys pay too much money, you know, a lot of this like, oh, you rich yuppies coming in and buying up the nice property, basically is what they were saying. And there was some of that, and I remember I got some real hard criticism from someone who I really looked up to in the pinball world. And I thought she was really fantastic in what she was doing in pinball. And she like ripped me apart in multiple places for my show. And my show was innocent. It was just, I love pinball and talk about pinball. And I thought she was doing something really, really cool. And she just shredded me. And I like reached out to her and was just like, wow, I am so bummed that like you said this about me in the show. I wanted you to come on the show. I wanted to give you a platform to talk about blah, blah. And it was just like, I don't want to do that. And you know what? I think in her defense, and I won't name her, I think she'd gotten a lot of criticism and hate and probably was, you know, like putting up her guard and just saw me as like this new thing. And she wasn't the only one. I had some of that. So I just remember at one point thinking, is this worth it? Is this worth these people who I'm like trying to be a part of their community? I'm trying to add something to the community positively and with energy and with passion and with thought. Is this worth it if these people are going to just like attack and take shots? And I mean, there was this whole like, oh, I hate his voice and all the vocal fry. He does it on purpose. I'm like, I'm just talking, bro. Like, I don't, come on. So there was that, which was sort of like, meh. But then some of the shows hit, and like you saw the the listenership go up and up and up, and then some controversy hit. You know, the big Skip-B pinball predator thing happened, and that was like a big deal. And man, that episode I did on Skip-B, and then later on the John Papaduke Magic Girl debacle episode, there was like 12,000 listens on those episodes.
Massive numbers.
So it's like, and I didn't know what was big. I didn't even know if that was big, but I just remember I told somebody, I said, you know, I have 12,000 downloads on this. They're like, you have 12,000 like blew their mind about pinball. And then I started taking it pretty serious because I was like, okay. And I was traveling, and so yeah, I think it scratched the itch. It was a lot of fun. I was doing multiple episodes a week sometimes. I'd do 2-3 a week. I was traveling. I was in hotels alone a lot. And I could either go out and, you know, I don't know, be a sightseer or get in trouble or talk about pinball. So I talked about pinball a lot. And there was places opening. Pinball was growing. And there was excitement about the games. And there still is, obviously. But it was new to me at the time. So it made it easy to really get into it. And getting to experience, you know, pinball expos and Papas and Pinburgs and the people I met, you know, meeting people like Gene X Wong and Josh and Zach Sharpe and, you know, all sorts of people who I think I may not keep in direct touch with right now, but I could walk into a place where they're playing pinball and it'd just be like nothing had happened. We'd just be playing pinball and having fun. And I really value a lot of that because that's like kind of the best part about the whole thing, right?
Yeah. And speaking of the Sharps, I know you did a series with Roger Sharpe on the podcast. And now he's recently become even more famous outside of the pinball world with, you know, the movie Pinball: The Man Who Saved the Game. How did you decide to document his story, and how did that actually come together?
Well, I mean, first off, I had a great father. My dad was awesome. But like, if I had to have a second father, it'd be Roger Sharpe, right? Like everybody kind of wants Roger Sharpe to be their dad.
Sure, if you could recruit one, yeah.
Roger's awesome, and I met Josh first because you know he was so forward with the IFPA and everything, and he was gracious enough to come on the show pretty early on, and he and I just kind of became fast friends. We're roughly the same age, a lot of the same experiences, and we just I just hit it off with Josh. And eventually I met his dad, and it was kind of like, whoa, like, you know, his dad's like the man who saved pinball and this whole thing. But his dad is just like the nicest guy in the world. And his dad quickly, I think, respected me. And he didn't have to, there was no reason to respect me other than like I respected him, I guess. And I cared about it. And I was going and playing and trying to learn. And I was hanging out with his kids. And so that was really special and still is very special to me. That family is a bunch of great people. And Josh told me really early on, yeah, my dad did all these interviews back in the day. and they're rough. And okay, so whatever, that went on. And then Roger told me, he goes, man, it's so funny, Nate. Your show is just like what I was wanting to do back when I was working for GQ in New York and had this recording machine. It's like I wanted to do that. He was trying to do the same thing, basically. It's so interesting, the parallels. So eventually we came to the point where they wanted to do something, and we did a few of the shows, and it kind of dropped off. I don't know if it was me just being far away. I got scared of those shows as I went deeper into the tapes, honestly. Probably we should still go back and do the rest of them because there's more interviews. It's probably on me more than anything, and just life and relationships and pandemics and jobs and stuff got in the way, and we never really, I don't think we finished it, and that makes me feel kind of bad, I think. But those interviews are really, like, as far as for pinball history goes, it's kind of the greatest thing in the world, hearing like Harry Williams talking to Roger, where Roger's in his 20s talking to Harry, who's on the way, on the back end of his career, about pinball. There's nothing like that. So that stuff's really special, and it was cool to do those. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of, like, I have to learn that because I don't know all that history, and I can't just jump on a call with Roger Sharpe and be like, hey, Roger, so tell me about this. I need to be able to kind of go back and forth with them on it. So
Yeah.
So that was really, really awesome. And man, I hope I get to hang out with them all again, because like I miss those guys a lot. And I talk to Zach, more than anybody now because of his role at Stern, and I work with Stern on their podcast. So it's been an interesting ride. But the Roger Sharpe stuff, it was pretty thrilling to get to see him get his due. Yes, he saved pinball. Yes, he's been an ambassador to pinball. He's played an integral role in multiple parts of the business over the years. But more than anything, he's just such a good person that it was like, seeing something good happen to the good guy is like really a nice story, I think.
That's great.
Erin, you probably don't remember a show on ABC called Wide World of Sports.
Okay.
Wide World of Disney, since you're a Floridian.
Yeah, that's what I associate it with.
Yeah. Okay. So it was actually a really cool show on Saturday afternoons. And if you like sports at all, it was like Sports Center before Sports Center, but they would do baseball to badminton. Right. And anyway, it was a great show of my youth. So Nate, when did you start Worldwide to Pinball? And
Wide World of Pinball, yeah.
Yeah, Wide World of Pinball. And kudos to that podcast. That's really fun.
That's a good shout out. I was thinking about this the other day. So while Coast to Coast Pinball was growing, I was starting to play in more competitions, and I was starting to talk more about more competitions. And like I remember buying video equipment and going to Pinburg, and it was the year Zach Sharpe won, actually, and it was just one of the coolest weekends to see someone that you're like friendly with like win a major pinball tournament like that. It was really a great time. And I was getting a ton of criticism though, because I was getting people who loved the shows where I was sitting in my hotel room after having like run around, I don't know, Portland, Maine, and playing pinball on location and then talking about it or dissecting the new game or the release. They loved that. They didn't so much like hearing me talk about 3 days of playing competitive pinball at Never Dreams in Southern California. They hated that. In fact, I got a lot of people saying, "Oh, Nate's show's off the rails. All he does is talk about competitive pinball." And hyperbole on the internet. That's just how it is. So,
of course.
So I had this idea, like, well, why don't I split it off? Why don't I keep Coast to Coast Pinball, the news, the commentary, the fun, the interviews with people, and why don't I? And look, I'm not the greatest player by a long ways. I'll never play in A division anywhere. So I had good friends who were literally in the top 10 rankings at the time in pinball world with Josh Sharpe and Steve Bowden. Steve Bowden, another one of these people who I miss dearly. He's a great guy. It's been so awesome to see him find like a career path in pinball, because it was just really something that meant a lot to him, and he was passionate about it, and he was good at it, and he's like one of the good people. So I asked him, I said, "Hey, do you guys want to just talk about competitive pinball?" And they were into it. One of the strengths, I will tell you, of Coast to Coast Pinball was that it was just me, and I didn't have to wait. No offense to Erin here, but I didn't have to wait for Erin to like also log in or like clear my schedule.
It's just on you, yeah.
It was just me, and I could turn out, and I figured out a way to do episodes fast. So the instant issue with Wide World of Pinball was it was 3 of us. And I think if you can find, I don't even know if those episodes are out there anymore. I'm terrible at archiving and keeping stuff.
Yeah, we were going to yell at you a little bit because we can't find any of the Coast to Coast or the Wide World of Pinball.
I have them somewhere. Somebody has logged, just in the last few months, somebody reached out to me because they were missing one episode. And by the time I could like tell them I thought I knew how to find it, they told me they had it. So they have every episode on a website where I can download them and catalog them. And I think what I'm going to do, I'll just tell you now, and maybe this will make me actually do it if I throw this out into the world. I'm going to put them all up on a new YouTube page just as like podcasts with audio only, just so they can live there forever. Because I feel pretty guilty to myself that they're not. But Wide World of Pinball just was like, it was that extra little bit I couldn't keep up with at the time, and we only did a few episodes. But I thought it was a cool idea as competitive pinball was growing and people were getting more into it. And, you know, two guys who know a lot are Josh and Steve. I mean, those guys, like Josh literally knows the whole history of pinball forever, and Steve knows like every rule and every concept.
He really does. It's unbelievable.
He's a brilliant human being.
I've sat down and he's commentated with me, and I have a problem shutting up. And I don't talk when he sits next to me. I just let the man go, let him talk and commentate. He's unbelievable.
Well, and what's great about Steve, I think Steve would probably self-describe himself as an introvert. I think he would probably say, I'm generally an introvert, but not with pinball. Because as soon as there's pinball to talk about, to discuss, to play, it's like he comes alive. And when I was doing a video series for Stern called Pinball with the Pros, see, I had all these ideas. I just couldn't keep everything going. But Pinball with the Pros was going to be pop-up pinball. So it was going to be me, a good player. Episode 1 was Keith Elwin, so a really good player. And it was going to be us playing a game, and basically them walking me through the game, how to play it, what to do, what's unique. I think I could have fine-tuned that side of it a little bit more, because it often ended up it was like, I remember the episode with Zach in Star Trek. I like beat him on a game, and that probably shouldn't happen. But, you know, we were going through it. Steve and I did a couple episodes. In fact, there's a lost episode that was never put out that I have somewhere, I think, because we did Mustang and we did Transformers in New York City. And I didn't know Steve all that well at the time. And I was like, hey, Steve, you want to do this? Because I know you're in New York. And he was like, yeah, let's do it. And like, I had such a great time. But watching Steve light up and just be so good at it. And that's why he's so good at the commentary side of it, because he knows all this. But the whole Pinball with the Pros idea, with the pop-up pinball with the silly text on the side, like making fun of me mostly, and kind of documenting what was going on, I still think could work. It was one of the most time-intensive things I've ever done, trying to edit videos and put up text.
I was going to ask you how
terrible.
How long?
Terrible.
From
hours and hours and hours and hours.
Hours. Yeah, you need to get an intern. We have an intern. And shout out to Ryan Gregg. He's a communications major at the University of Texas. And he reached out to me and said, I love your podcast. Well, he's dating Tim's nephew, who owns the joint, not dating Tim's niece. And he does all our editing, and he's unbelievable at it. Now all I have to do is write and create. And
I didn't have the foresight back then. I really loved doing all of it. But I remember really specifically somebody emailing me about Pinball with the Pros saying, hey, I love these. These could be great. I can do all the video editing for you if you just want to send me the footage. And I was like, no way, man. That's like what I do. Like, I do all that. And I was probably a mistake. The last thing I'll say about Pinball with Pros is we did Walking Dead with Lyman Sheets at the Stern factory. And I still think that was one of my favorite days ever with pinball. Didn't even really know Lyman. Lyman was I think, you know, I don't know if Lyman knew me or not. That was always the weird thing walking into some of these, is like, I didn't know if they actually knew who I was or not. It was always like, hey, I'm Nate. And it's like, yeah, I know. I'm like, okay. And we played Walking Dead, and he was so kind to me, and he was so good and so just knowledgeable, and he wanted to be really good. There was a stress in Lyman, I felt that day, where he just wanted to be really good at it and be good on camera and tell a good story about it. And that was a really cool time, and I'm glad we did that. So I think that was the last one put out. I don't know for sure, but I'd have to go back and dig those out. I have those videos, And I'll put someday there will be a new channel with all of this stuff, and those
Your
will
full
all be
archive
forever.
of everything you've ever done before. Yeah.
Hold me to it. Somebody hold me to it.
Interns, send your email to wormholepinball@gmail.com, and I will hook you up with Nate Shivers, and we'll get an intern here for
Yeah,
you.
it doesn't pay at all.
No,
In
no,
fact,
no. But they get to put it on LinkedIn.
Maybe they get some ad revenue from when you start monetizing all those videos there.
for right now, maybe. Who knows?
Go ahead, Erin, with
Sure. Well, you've mentioned Stern a number of times, so have to ask, first of all, how did you get connected with Stern as a whole? And then how did the Stern Insider Connect podcast originate?
It was really kind of that day, honestly. The Stern story, and I don't know if I've told this all the way through. I think I have. I might have told this, but I'll tell you I'm here. So I wanted to do, so I met Jody Dankberg first. I want to say Jody was probably my first contact at Stern. And I don't even recall what the context was, but Jody reached out to me about something and we chatted. We talked about something. He got mad at me a couple times. I said stuff on the podcast. It's going to happen. We made up. Everything was fine. And then I think maybe he asked me if I no, I think I pitched him the idea of the videos, and he offered to sponsor them. So Stern actually sponsored those Pinball with the Pros videos. He gave me money, like actual real money that I paid taxes on. To do those. And at the time when he sent me the money, I thought, oh man, this is like way too much money for these videos. I've got to like film as many of these as possible. Stern just gave me like real money. And then as I did the first one, I'm like, they did not give me enough money to do these videos. This is not enough.
It takes so much time.
Oh my God. But it was a good experiment. And so the day that we did that Walking Dead Pinball with the Pros, I was there. I was in a t-shirt and jeans, sweating. Was intimidating to me on some level. It's Lyman effing Sheets. I mean, come on. And I was a little nervous, and I looked terrible on camera. I looked horrible. And I'm just like, and I just want it to be good because I'm in the Stern factory playing their game with the factory behind us and Lyman next to me. And we finished, and then they were talking, and Lyman was showing somebody something on a game. And this guy walked up to me and he started talking to me. He goes, "Hey Nate, that looks really fun. Like, what got you into this?" And I start telling him a little bit about that. And he goes, "What do you do? Like, how are you here? Why are you in Chicago doing this?" And I said, "Well, I work for Taylor Guitars. I'm a guitar salesman. I run a territory. I sell guitars and I travel and blah." He's like, "Oh, really? That's really interesting. I love Taylor Guitars." And we're talking, this and that. And he's like, "Man, I want you to come meet somebody. Come on and meet somebody." And so as it all goes around, I kind of get introduced to Gary Stern's partner at Stern, who, was business partners at Stern, and John Buscaglia, who is one of their like executives who basically runs all their revenue and business and sales. And they start talking to me and they're like, "Yeah, like, we're really growing. Business is good," because they were booming at the time, outgrowing their factory. Sales were exploding, and they were doing it very old school. It was very old school. Stern is a manufacturing company. It's a blue-collar company. It's in Chicago. People don't even understand. I see people talk about, they're sitting in a boardroom at Stern. No, they're not. That's generally not how it works. It's much more organic and like down to earth than I think most people would ever realize. And it was very old school in 2014 probably. And they start talking to me and they're like, "Yeah, we're really looking for someone to come on board here at Stern and grow this and grow this and grow this and grow this." And I'm like, "Yeah, you guys should do that. You guys should find somebody who could drive your sales and like figure out a way to have better relations with your dealers and distributors and have a more professional thing and blah, blah, blah." And they're like, yeah, like you should do it. And I was like, oh, what, me? I missed it. I wasn't realizing they were like talking to me like, "Why don't you come work here?" And I was like, oh. And I remember the first thing I literally said to John, I go, "No, I'm not moving to Chicago." And he goes, "Well, Chicago, it's great." I'm like, "Oh, sorry, I don't mean anything bad about it." I was just, in my head, I was just so out of left field. And I was like, no, I'm not. And he's like, "Think about it. Talk to me." Like, and John is another one of these people. John, unsung person at Stern. Most people don't know who he is. Sweetheart of a person. Fantastic guy. And he said, "Just take my card and let's talk." And he sent me off because he's older and wiser than I am. And I'm like, stupid and just like, "Nah, I don't want to come to Stern." Chicago. And so I go home, and then we start talking, and over the next few months, we talked till I was going to move to Chicago and go work at Stern. And they offered me a really great deal. This whole thing was going to happen. I went and rented a house in Chicago. I was moving. I was gone. It was Taylor was all upset. They were like, "Oh, why are you leaving?" But they understood because Stern was offering me this chance at a big thing. And then right before I left, Taylor came back to me and said, "Hey, we sort of had this idea, but it's probably too late." And I'm like, "Well, what was it?" And they're like, "Well, we thought you might want to go run our sales in Europe." And I was like, "Oh, why didn't you tell me that?" And so this thing happened, and I had to make this really difficult call to Stern and call John and some of the people there and be like, "Hey, so I know I signed the offer. I know I'm supposed to come out there, but like I'm not going to, and I'm going to move to Europe instead." And they were gracious. They were not thrilled with me, I'm sure. They had spent money flying me there, and I'd been out there for like an orientation day and like lunches with Gary Stern and all this stuff. And then I'm just like, "Yeah, never mind." And I think some people were like, "Did he play us to get a better deal with Taylor?" And it just happened that way. And the chance to move to Europe and to manage this excellent sales team that my company has over here was just something I couldn't turn down. And I would have been very happy in Chicago, and I would have probably done great things with them. They've done great things without me. That's okay. But so that created sort of the bond with some of the people at Stern. And then Zach Sharpe went to work there. And so I was friends with Zach. We hung out at events, and we saw each other. And once I moved here, Coast to Coast Pinball became really hard to do well. And it was two things. It was I was really busy. I had a new job. I had a lot of new responsibilities. I was in a new country where I didn't speak any of the language. I was learning. I was in a relationship that was failing. So I had a lot of things going on around me. And Coast to Coast Pinball was, instead of the thing that I like woke up in the morning thinking like, "Oh, what can I do on the podcast?" Like, well, it was "Oh man, I haven't done a podcast in like 10 days. What am I going to do?"
That's not a good sign for a content creator to feel that way.
No,
Yeah.
it's really bad. And so it became that, and it was hard to do Coast to Coast Pinball at that time because I was so close to Stern. I had meetings with George Gomez. I had, it got really tough to be totally critical and totally fair either way. If I said something positive about Stern, I felt like, am I saying that because I like these people? And if I said something negative, am I saying that because I don't want to feel like I'm always it became really weird. And I wasn't, and you know what, honestly, I told you, I started Coast to Coast Pinball because I wanted there to be more out there. There was all of a sudden a lot out there. A lot of people were doing podcasts. A lot of people were doing very good podcasts. And so I didn't feel any pressure that nobody needed my show. And I didn't know if I needed my show. So I said to Zach, I said, if I were to shut down Coast to Coast Pinball, would Stern want to do a podcast? And he's like, "Yeah, would love to do it." Because Zach was the head of marketing at Stern. And he's like, "Let's do it." And it was just like instant. It was like literally like, I don't know if it's text message or phone call or what it was, but it was just like, it happened like in moments. And I was like making notes for my final episode to sign off and be done. And so, they were starting their Insiders program. I think a lot of companies in the world are trying to figure out how to create a community amongst their customers and their people that are, even not direct customers of Stern, but maybe just play Stern games or play pinball. And, it's tough when you're the biggest company in an industry. You want to try and grow the industry, right? Like Stern has all the market share. Like, I don't know what the market share is for Stern versus all the other companies, but it's probably, I don't know, 80 to 90% of the market share is Stern, right? In revenue, I think. I don't know. Let's call it 75%.
Sure.
How do you grow your business? It gets very difficult, right? So in my company, Taylor, we have the same issues. How do you grow the business when your market share is so big? And you either need more customers coming in, which pinball had for 10 years. There was this influx of people. Mm-hmm. Or you need innovative products, which I think we've seen some of that for sure. Or you need more expensive products to grow revenue. But it gets tough. So Stern's Insider program was definitely a way to get people inside with them, being a part of it, feeling somewhat connected to Stern. The podcast is just a little tiny thing that you get as a part of that. I literally do it for free. I'm the biggest sucker in the world. I just do it because I like talking, and Zach's a friend of mine. And one day, I keep thinking one day I'm going to wake up and they're going to be like, oh, we sent you a pinball machine. We're cool now. And they have not done that yet. But yeah, so I just wanted to stay involved because I do really. I'm just looking at the games behind you, Jamie, and I'm like, oh man, I wish I had that. Like, I live in a tiny apartment in Amsterdam. All of them. All of them. Like, I wish I had that wall.
Yeah.
You know?
You got some pretty good ones behind you right now, Jamie, too. So
Yeah, we always try, Nate and Erin, to put something cool behind me. Like Barracora. We had well,
What is it's Dracula, yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
maybe not
Dracula,
that one.
Cosmic Princess,
I
Addams
always
Family
lose on
Labyrinth.
Dracula.
Yeah.
I suck at Dracula, but Cosmic Princess is a Stern Electronics. But I want to put Future Queen behind me, which is a Bell Games, and that won
That's a
an
funky
award
one.
at TPF, and that's really pretty. And then Warlock, I want to put Warlock behind me if we're going to keep Warlock, because you just don't see a lot of Warlocks.
No, it's a great lineup. So I miss that. I used to have a small row, like 4 or 5 games when I was in California. And here I've just had like a Jurassic Park style. But yeah, I still wanted to be a part of it. So I get, I get these emails like every few months from Zach going, hey man, we're ready. Like, what's your week like next week or the week after? And then I get the little, the locked zip folder of all the assets of what the new game is, and I get to know the new game, and it's always, I'm still really excited by it, and I see it, and it's still a lot of fun. And Stern just has like so many people at the company now. It's become a very big company with lots of really smart, talented people. I just view it as kind of a privilege to get to sort of host in their stories a little bit. We keep those podcasts super top level. We don't deep dive too much, except when Tim Sexton's on, because then you have to deep dive.
Sure.
That's what he does. But we just try and, it's just like, let's let them celebrate their game. They've been working on those games for a year and a half, 2 years. Oftentimes, those teams, whether it's mechanical engineers, sound design, certainly the designers. So it's just like, hey, let's celebrate your release. It's finally out. Let's talk about what's good about it. We're not trying to dissect it from like a critical standpoint, because I'm on the take sort of, but I'm part of the whole thing. So we're just it's a marketing thing. It's a big commercial for the new game in a format that we hope is entertaining, and we get great feedback on it.
Oh, that's great.
I think it is. Yeah, it's fun. It's
Are
not.
you recording one in the next few days?
I can't say. I can't say. I mean. Maybe
Sorry,
I am.
Erin, sorry.
Maybe I'm not, but maybe I am.
Yeah. Maybe you have 7 that you're recording the next week. What? Yeah, no.
Maybe I am. I will say this. I don't know for sure what the game is yet.
Okay.
That's coming out next.
You haven't gotten the packet.
If I were to be recording a podcast in the next few weeks. But yeah, it's still a lot of fun. And I daydream all the time, like, man, what if I just gone to Chicago? I rented this really cool house. It was a split level house. I was gonna put all these pinball machines in. And I was like envisioning all my Jack Danger's gonna be in my house playing pinball. It's gonna be great. And that was before he was at Stern. But that didn't happen. So
It scratches the itch. This still scratches the itch. There you go.
and that's why I'm doing a band still. I'm in my mid-40s and I have a rock band called Comet Falls. It's just me in a band. And I have a YouTube channel with Katrina. Nate and Katrina Do the World, and we go try and find pinball machines. It's a very small part of it, so don't expect to see a lot of pinball, but it is scratching the itch of, I've learned how to edit video. Like, I can edit a 15 to 25 minute YouTube vlog now pretty effectively, and it's a lot of fun. And we found, where were we? We were in Poland, I think, recently I don't even remember what city. It was either in Gdansk or Posen. I think it was Gdansk. We found a pinball arcade underneath the hotel, and like the only Stern game, there's probably 80, 90 games in there. The only Stern game in there was Striker Extreme, which I thought was hilarious. It was all older games. It was really neat. Yeah. And I
Speaking
played
of,
Striker Extreme, and it's still not that great.
it's okay. No offense, but I'm a World Cup soccer guy.
Hey, World Cup Soccer is one of the greatest games ever made. I will
It
hang my
sure as
hat on
heck
that.
is. It sure
Awesome
as
rule
heck is,
set,
Nate.
awesome flow. Yeah, it's a great
And
game.
you know why I say this? Because it's the only game I own. Tim and John have a combined 240 pinball machines.
Wow.
You know what my contribution is? World Cup soccer. That's it.
They should host Pinball.
Well, I mean, we're going to do something big when
When the new space
Wormhole
opens.
when the new space
Yeah.
opens. I mean, that's 13,000 square feet,
That's
120.
in 2026, right?
Yeah, and it's
See, I
2020.
listen.
Look at that.
2026, 2027 is when we're looking at opening that, and then good things happening there. So it'll be interesting. To side note for the museum, I don't want this to be an infomercial, but it'll be interesting the mix of games there, because we have games from Apple time to Geiger to Bell games. How do they play in tournaments will be interesting, right? Because like Future Queen doesn't play well in tournaments at all. It's a quick game,
Yeah.
right? So that'll be an interesting mix for our techs to have to figure out, but we'll figure it out.
You know, one of the things about competitive pinball that I thought, and I think this has been said, I'm sure this has been said by lots of people, but for me personally, I didn't have a lot of experience with EMs or like early solid state games because I grew up, my first pinball experience was Doctor Who. I remember it plain as day, walking into the little video store where you'd rent VHS tapes. Erin, VHS tapes were these things. They were these.
What? Yeah. No.
Just kidding. Oh, you made a joke about how young she is. I get. But yeah, so I walked in the video store and they had a arcade machine and they had a Doctor Who pinball, and that's when I fell in love with pinball. But I didn't have experience. I'd never played a Harlem Globetrotters pinball machine until I got to some classics tournament at Papa or saw it in a bank at Pinburg, and you start going, oh my gosh, this game is like super bare bones, quote unquote, but absolutely brilliant in the fact that I'm trying to score on it, and in a competitive situation, it just amplifies how great it is. In some of those old games, the Dollies of the world,
Yeah.
just fantastic. And that's actually my favorite thing, I think, about some of the competition time that I had was like learning these old games. And I don't even remember what the game was, but I remember we had our group at Pinburg where we'd all text each other. So we'd have like a text group with like 8 or 9 of us, and you'd get your bank and you'd read through your bank and you'd be like, oh my God, Barracora, what do I do in Barracora? And inevitably,
yeah, exactly.
somebody would go, and I don't know what this is not, please don't call me out on this, but it was, I forget what the game was, but it was like an old like 80s, I want to say it was a wide body game that had a bunch of like colored line, maybe inline targets or something. And I remember it was either Josh or Zach, just like literally just hit the red target on the right the whole time. Don't aim at anything else. Just hit the red target on the right. And I went in and like won that game in the bank because somebody in my group told me, hey, just go hit the right target.
Well, that's a pretty good person to have in your group text there to give you that insight. So yeah.
Man, I'm not very good, so I need to find an edge, and these brilliant players were my edge. But that's when I love that about competition pinball with older games that might be to some boring or I don't know, whatever. I think they're still all great. But
That's the community, though, right, Erin?
Yeah.
And Nate, is that one of my favorite things when we have like 40 people here is I walk up to Erin and I'll go, what are you on? And you wouldn't say that to anyone else in normal circumstances. To think I was telling drugs are on, but she's like, yeah, I'm on Funhouse. I didn't have a good ball one, but I'll be okay. I mean, it's just the funniest thing to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. I love those old machines too. It's quite a whiplash going from, a John Wick to a Space Odyssey, but I feel like that's part of it too, being able to adapt to those old machines, to those new machines. And yeah, I agree. I'm partial to some of those classics.
Absolutely. What's your favorite games, you two? So what's your favorite games of all time?
Boy, always toughest
Like
question.
just one game. Just what is my favorite game?
Congo.
Congo. Okay.
Yeah, World Cup soccer.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't. I
If you
don't
made me
care how
pick
many
one.
times I beat Germany.
Yeah.
Still gonna
And
win
we
Germany.
need a tally of how many times Jamie has referenced World Cup soccer, I think, on this podcast somewhere. But yeah, no, that World Cup soccer is fantastic too.
Oh, I love that dog. I love him. He's great.
That is
Very
great.
cool.
That's good. Nice.
All right. Well, you've talked a little bit about, how there's been a lot more pinball media that's come out recently. What do you think of the current pinball media space? Are there any gaps that you still think need to be filled, or are we flush with all the pinball content we need?
There's a lot. I listen to a few things. So like I keep up with the news. Like I'll check in on the Nap Arcade page just to see if I'm like missing any stories. I have a tough time with Pinside anymore because it's just gotten so big. I remember I used to finish Pinside back in like 2013. I would have everything read the whole day, and you can't do that anymore. Nor would you want to, probably for your mental health. So I've always followed the bro guys in Buffalo Pinball. I've always followed them. They're just nice people, and they have a good sensibility about themselves.
Well,
and
we had Nick Lane on the podcast, shameless plug, and Jason Knapp, another shameless plug. Okay, sorry.
No, it's all right. I watched some of the Nick Lane episode the other day to prepare for this, and it's just like those guys are just a good spirit about them. I knew they'd still be doing it for a long time because they're doing it because they really love it. So that's kind of the ones that I still follow is when I see people who just are enjoying it for, I don't know, the joy of it all. I always try to keep my show from being about me. That was always something that bothered me towards the end of it, or when there was controversy, when it was sort of the spotlight would head towards me. Like, I'm already doing the show, it's already about me, I get it. But I wanted it to be about the pinball and about the hobby and the community and the people in it. So that's mainly it. So I jump in and out. I will see stuff pop up on my YouTube feed from people I don't even know. And I'm surprised how good everybody plays nowadays. It's very intimidating. I would fear going to a local tournament right now without some practice. And B, people are smart. People know their stuff, what they're talking about. I just enjoy it. So I don't want to name a bunch of names. Actually, I wrote some names down. I'm not going to like run through this list,
right.
But because it's more like, I will say the bro guys, just because they've been doing it for so long, they're great at it. I did listen to, let me get this right. I did listen to Don's Pinball Podcast recently. Mm-hmm. Really liked that. Thought that was good. And then that's all I'll say.
Okay.
That's all. Yeah.
Fair enough.
What do you think, as someone who's been in the hobby for a little bit, what do you think about the current pinball landscape? Do we have too much pinball? Too many pinball manufacturers?
Well, it's interesting because I was going to say, actually, I had a point about the whole pinball thing. So I think people who do content creation in pinball, they do it because they generally want to be a part of it, and they want to add something to something they love. Because that's always like, I love this thing. I'm so into this thing. I love the community. I love the people. What can I give to it? And some people want to be creative and they give to it. Love that. There's so much of it now. I think it's hard to like, if you're only doing it because you want to see the view number go way up, it's hard right now because there's a lot. Like, you can't keep up with all of it now. You just can't.
Yeah.
And so you either have to be really, really good at it, really, really consistent at it, or some combination of, charisma, personality, or you have an angle if you're going to stand out. And that's fine. That's just how the world is when things get popular. And because it was funny. I heard a video cast, I guess, a vlog about pinball, and he was mentioning how popular his show had gotten. And I was like, oh, really? This is like one of the popular. And then I went back and looked at the views, and they were actually, I thought, really low, but I'm thinking about 12,000 views or, downloads I'd had on some, and this was nowhere near that. Okay. But there's so much now. It's going to get splintered out. And now, when I look back at manufacturers, Stern obviously was kind of it for a long time. And then Jersey Jack brought money and a great flair for design and a grandiose approach to it that I think was great for Stern also, to see that, to have somebody kind of nip at their heels a little bit. That was really healthy. And then you had the boutique builders, and you had the rise of someone like Spooky Pinball, who kind of took this like working class ethic approach to it and just like made it happen. And it's, I've said it before, it's an American success story, what they've done there. I see some of the other games coming out now. I was like looking at one the other day, and I don't want to criticize anybody, because people are doing it because they want to be a part of it. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot, and some of it's not that good. And that's fine, because I remember going to TPF and seeing like the homebrew games, and you're like, okay, that's awesome. But if you built 100 of them, it wouldn't be that good because you'd be trying to get money for this thing that's kind of rough around the edges, not very refined, whatever it might be. Maybe it doesn't have a great layout. Because layout is not just something you can literally, oh, I drew it on a napkin and it shoots great. That's not how it works. And art is not just something, oh yeah, I got a friend who knows how to do Photoshop and he's got this AI program. No, that won't make a real complete, beautiful package generally. So one of something in a homebrew setting can be absolutely amazing. And I've seen lots of those. But when you try and just say, we're going to build 100 and we're going to take your pre-order money, I start getting a little icky feeling inside, because I said this a long time ago and it became sort of a funny catchphrase we would say on Coast Pinball. Pinball's hard. These are complicated boxes of lights, you know. There's a lot to it. There's physics there nowadays. I mean, the sound and integration of LED screens, the design behind all, there's art to this. There's an art. It is not just a mechanical engineer that builds a pinball machine. It's just not. And that's why, you know, what's a pinball designer do? Well, he kind of directs the whole thing and brings the artistic side and the magic of that, hopefully, if he's good at what he does. And that's why you see someone like Keith Elwin or Jack Danger come out, because they've sucked up so much of this information in their lifetime that when they then learn the tools of the design and the game, that what they put out is actually pretty artful and magical. So there are some good homebrew stuff out there. I think there's some smaller, like look, I think Jersey Jack still makes really fun games. I think they're great. I don't want to get into the argument about the theme integration or this or that. Like that's secondary to me. Spooky Pinball puts their heart and soul into it. I haven't loved every game they've made. You know, I own an America's Most Haunted, still in California. I didn't bring it over here with me. That game's fun. Ben had a really great vision, and it shot really good. Not amazing, but good. But it had the art to it. It had some magic to it with the sound design and the story it told. But not every game. But some of these games I see that people are taking money for, and some of these companies are now out of business, owed people money, kind of sucks.
Yeah.
So I hate that. But I don't blame people for trying, you know? Like, if you got a passion for it and you think you can do it, I caution everybody, you know, when you're dealing with startups, any startup, just not pinball. I see it happens in guitars, happens in my industry. Somebody builds a couple guitars, they're really nice, and they try and build 50 of them and they go broke. So it's hard to do. It's difficult. I don't know. What do you think? So if you took Stern, Jersey Jack, Spooky, American Pinball off, if you don't talk about them, who's the best after that? I'm curious.
We're biased, so we can't say anything because we're in Houston.
Okay.
And we know everyone that works for Barrels of Fun. In fact, Erin works at Barrels of Fun.
I do some social media stuff for them on the side.
We take Barrels of Fun off.
Okay.
I've never put my hands on a game by Barrels of Fun, so I have no opinion.
Well, it's just one labyrinth, and it's awesome.
Yeah. It looks beautiful. Beautiful.
It really is, but we're very, very biased there, so I think it's okay for us to say that.
Okay, so who's really good? Forget the best. The best is very subjective.
I gotta go probably with the Pulp Fiction Chicago over there would be my probably one after that.
They just take so long to get
They
them
do.
out. And then
100%. But if you're making me pick from the rest, yeah.
By the time it comes out, you're like, ugh.
I have played that. I have played a Pulp Fiction. It's very, for what they were trying to do, it's very cool. Mm-hmm. It's very cool. I like it a lot.
I kind of worry, does it have that playability again and again?
I could see that. Is the value proposition there? I think that was the question I had.
Sure. As someone who likes leaning into those classic games, I think it plays into that aspect of it for me personally. But yeah.
It's tough to build a new game that's like a classic game. And I've had this conversation with Josh many times because you're up against
Beatles, right? I mean, Beatles is a good example.
Yeah, you're going to sell a $7,000 Beatles game, hard to do, when you can I don't know, you can't buy a $7,000 Fathom anymore, but you could buy a Funhouse for $7,000, certainly.
Sure.
It's hard. It's hard
Yeah.
to do.
Pinball is hard. You didn't make any merch on that, did you? That was a mistake.
I don't think we did that one. No, I sold a lot of T-shirts in my day, though.
All right. I think it's time. We're going to end this interview with you it's time for our rapid fire question game.
This is where I don't look so smart.
No, it's called the hurry up. All right. You take your time. It doesn't have to be rapid fire, but Erin's going to.
I like that it's called the hurry up, and the first direction is take your time. But yes,
No.
I appreciate that.
All right, Erin, you start us off.
All right. Best pinballer you've ever seen?
Uh,
I know, putting you on the
Keith
spot.
Elwin.
Fair. Okay.
If Nate Shivers was asked to narrate his own pinball tutorial, what game do you feel like you're the master of that you could record?
Most of my life, I would have said Twilight Zone. It might be Jurassic Park now, just because I've played that game endlessly. But there's enough in there that I'd get lost, and Keith would shake his head at me and be like, no. So I'd say Twilight Zone.
Okay. All right. We saw a variety of your supposed nicknames on Pinside. Are any of them true? If so, what is your favorite nickname?
Do I have nicknames? I don't think I have any nicknames. Erin, do I have nicknames?
According to Pinside, yes.
We're in a Pinside, but I didn't write them down. That's terrible at producing, Jamie. We'll cut that question out, Erin.
All right.
Don't leave it. You have to leave it. No edits. Don't edit. I'm just kidding.
All right.
Poor
If you want to
Ryan.
know the answer, go find it on Pinside and then come back to us. Yeah.
If we've had a lot of vaulting of games in pinball, if you could rerun vault any game in the history of pinball, what would you choose?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. This is where I compliment your question while I think about my answer, because I don't know
That's a
right
good
off the
move.
top of my head.
That's not a rookie move, Erin.
That's
So-
right there.
If I could vault any game, I would have to like I would spreadsheet it, and I would do I'd want it something that there's fairly low production numbers of. So I don't know, because part of me wants to say Circus Voltaire, but I don't particularly love Circus Voltaire, so it's like that doesn't feel genuine to me. Erin, what's your answer on this? Maybe that'll strike something in my mind.
Well, now I have to think of the answer to this on our own question.
You can't
Well-
choose Congo.
I'm not choosing Congo, I promise. I do love Dracula. It's right behind you, which I don't know. That could be up there for me.
That's actually a pretty good one. I would either pick a more obscure, I don't know. See, I also really want to say, I'm trying not to say a Stern game, but I think Tron has just been there for so long. It's like, can we please just remake the
Fair.
game already?
Uh-huh.
So maybe just that, so we could stop talking about it.
I love it. All right. Now, name someplace internationally that you haven't traveled to yet for pinball, but would like to check it out sometime.
That's a great question. I have not been to a lot of places in. I've actually never been to South America. I don't know if there's any pinball scene in South America, so I would love to go on just a fact-finding mission through South America, looking for pinball.
I like it.
I've never been there, so I would like to do that. Yeah, probably that.
Cool.
We have a reusable question here called Shitty Movie, Great Pinball Machine.
Okay.
All right. So out of this list, pick your best pinball machine.
Multiple choice. Love it. Thank you.
Congo. Sorry, Erin.
Fine.
Demolition Man. She likes the book anyway.
Yeah.
Congo, Demolition Man, The Shadow, or right behind me, Bram Stoker's Dracula.
So what am I picking? What's the best game out of this?
What's the best game?
Movies?
I mean, Shadow's the best game, followed by Congo, then Demolition Man. I'm not a huge Dracula fan. I'm
Okay.
not. I want to be, because I like the lightning bolt inserts and I like the dark spookiness vibe of it. I'm not good at the game.
I'm not good at this game at all.
bad at that
Can't
game.
collect bats, rats. I can't do anything.
I think it won me over when I started to get good at it. So yeah.
And I will tell you this, a good Congo is better than a bad Shadow. Like if you have a good dialed in Congo, I'd much rather play that than a bad Shadow. But I like the Shadow a lot. Shadow's a really cool game.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is.
All right,
One
now
of
we're going
those,
to take
it's a good shooter.
yes. We're going to take a big pivot here. Mayonnaise on French fries, yes or no?
No, I live in the
Yeah.
world center of that nonsense. These people around me. I love you, Dutch people. I love you, but your mayonnaise obsession is disgusting. Ketchup.
All right, good. I wrote that question, so I wanted to make sure. Which tastes better? And I'm gonna. I don't know if I can get these correctly. A stroopwafel,
Stroopwafel.
a
Double O
stroopwafel,
is a hard O in Dutch. Yeah,
a
stroopwafel.
bittenballen,
Bitterballen, yeah.
or a poffertjes.
Poffertjes. So it's not bitterballen. I actively don't like bitterballen. Bitterballen are like little fried, it's like meat ragu stew, breaded and deep fried, and I don't like, I've never. See, this is my Nate and Katrina Do the World YouTube vlog. This is what we do.
Yeah,
we have
good.
we have an
See?
entire episode about the best stroopwafels in Amsterdam.
Oh,
And,
okay.
and the best stroopwafels is at Rudy's in the Albert Kuyt Market in Amsterdam. It's fantastic. They press it in front of you. So I personally would say a freshly made stroopwafel, not the one in the packages, not the ones at the grocery store, but where they actually like press the waffle, slice it in half. They literally open it up in front of you, and they got a big pot of the syrup, stroop is syrup, and they spread it on, and they put it back together, and they hand it to you. That's better. Poffertjes are good. Poffertjes are mini pancakes. Katrina loves Poffertjes. That's her thing. But I would say a fresh stroop waffle's the best.
Nice. All right, favorite machine with an upper playfield.
I mean, is it Shadow? Like, is it Home?
I think
Speaking
Shadow?
of that one, yeah.
No, I mean, it's Twilight Zone, certainly. So that's probably like, if somebody just puts a gun to my head and goes, "What's your favorite pinball machine?" I go, "It's Twilight Zone." Stop, don't shoot. I mean, Twilight Zone, Shadow. I generally am not a big fan of upper play fields. It's not really my thing. Simpsons Pinball Party. I mean, pretty, probably one of the best ones. I don't even say that Twilight Zones is the best, but maybe it is because of
The magnets is
power.
pretty cool in Twilight.
Yeah, so it's Twilight Zone. Yeah.
Okay.
Action button, yes or no, on a pinball.
Yeah. You only got two buttons on a pinball machine, so to get like another thing, I think is good. I always like on the Stern Insiders Pinball Podcast, which we may or may not be recording a new episode of here in the next like 10 to 15 days, but probably not. But probably not.
Okay.
Probably. I always like waiting until we're like late in the episode and then saying to whoever the designer might be, "So what's the action button do?" And everyone just kind of laughs because it's usually been a big contentious point between people at Stern. But yeah, sure. I like action buttons. Better than double flippers. I don't like double flippers. Like when you start putting extra sets of buttons
On the side.
like the Shadow we were just talking about, that has them, right? Am I dumb now? No, it has them. I don't like double flippers.
Okay. All right. And finally, our last rapid fire question. Favorite IFPA tournament format?
Oh, I mean, yeah, match play. Like, there's reasons why it shouldn't be match play. I don't know. I watched Tim's Why I'm Not Playing Competitive Pinball video anymore. Have you guys seen that?
Yeah,
I have, yes.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I had some thoughts. I thought that was Tim took a shot for sure, and I think he's exactly right on some of it, and some of it I don't agree with him at all on. But yeah, match play, and I see why a top level pro might not like match play. But as I've noted, I'm not the greatest pinball player, so I have beat in Pinburg, in banks, some really much better pinball players than me in a bank of 4 games. If it's the right 4 games and they're having a bad moment, I've beat them, and that brings me endless joy. So I have to say, like, a big old match play tournament is definitely my favorite.
Thank you so much, Nate. That was a lot of fun. And thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. We went a little over the hour. I'm really sorry and
Don't worry about it.
about that. But when will we see you next? Are you going to any expos?
You know, I had toyed around with Expo this year. Zach and I were actually talking about, like, well, if I came to Expo, what could we do? And I don't know if I'm going to come to Expo. It doesn't look like it. So I don't know. I'm not sure. If you really want to see me, go to my YouTube page, Nate and Katrina Do the World. And
There you
you can watch me be an idiot every Sunday. Every Sunday this year, we put out a vlog. But as far as pinball goes, whenever there's a Stern Insiders Pinball podcast, it's audio only. We do them on Zoom. I could literally record them and put them out, I guess, but we don't. We just do audio. I think a lot of people there don't necessarily want to be on camera for it. But yeah, that's my pinball pinball partaking activity right now. But I don't know. I've had the itch lately. I've been looking at some tournaments, and I miss It Never Drains just by like a week every. I'm always in California the week before it, so we'll see. We'll see.
Well, you're a delight. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today, and we look forward to maybe an upcoming Stern Insider Connected podcast.
I mean, eventually they have to put a game out.
They're going to put
It's
a game
true.
out eventually.
It's true.
People need to build something there. So yeah.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah. No. Jamie, Erin, thank you. You guys are wonderful. Thanks very
Thanks
much.
so
Thank
much.
you, sir. Erin, that was fun.
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks again to Nate Shivers for coming on our podcast. That was a great honor for us. Okay, gotta talk to you, young lady.
Okay.
I heard a rumor that you spent some time in the Wormhole Vault recently. So the vault for people, why don't you explain it? What is the vault? What is the
Yeah,
vault?
it's one of the branches of Wormhole that I have heard many rumors about, and I think I've seen your teaser on that you put out on social media of it.
Yeah,
But
with that cool
it's
camera.
yes, it's basically where all of the machines that aren't ready yet for prime time that are in Wormholes, aka Tim John's collection, reside. So some of them are actually machines that previously were at Wormhole and kind of have been moved out, like the retirees from the Wormhole like collection that was played in tournaments. And then others are ones that like have arrived from Europe and haven't even been opened yet. So it's like this cool combo of games that need worked on versus like perfect games. So and it's being renovated itself, just like all the rest of Wormhole is too,
Mhm.
and being made into an even better place for repair techs and stuff to be able to come work on
Yeah,
these
they put a
games.
kitchen in it. They put
Yes.
bathrooms. They put a big refrigerator, anything that they need, and we stocked it too. So
Yes.
anything that the techs need to get these machines up and running is what we want to provide for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was super, super cool. I mean, I have a mechanical engineering background, so I'm still learning all of the repair tech stuff, but seeing some of these old mechanics and machines and things like that, it was very, very fun.
Can you talk about why you were there?
Yeah, so I'm working on, well, I kind of like doubled up and did a couple things. I'm working on an article for a magazine that deadline's in October, so it'll be a little while till it's out, but I'll share when it's there. That's kind of documenting the Wormhole crew repairing one of these machines from opening it off the ship from Europe to getting it tournament ready, as well as some of the work that happens on Wednesday repair nights at Wormhole to keep machines up and running and getting the nitty gritty of that. So I was there for that initial, what game are we going to pick for this? And also opening it up and seeing it. And I got to play the game in its current condition, which was super fun, which I won't say which one it is because I think it might be one of the games that comes to Houston Arcade Expo.
Yeah, I don't know. We can announce that a Magic Girl,
Okay,
fully upgraded Magic Girl Zidware is coming to Houston
cool.
Arcade Expo, and I can announce it only because they already put it on the website, a list of games.
Very
So
good. It's fully public. Okay.
it is public out there. The other one that's going to go in the booth, I don't know about.
That's the one that it could be the one that was opened or another one, depending on what happens
Right.
with some of the repairs. So
I want Terrific Lake. Did you get to see it?
I saw it like under plastic, but
Under
not
plastic?
like opened up. Yeah.
I'm like number something in the world there. Because one of my geeky things I like to do is I go to the vault. This is stupid, but I go to the vault and I look up a game on Pindigo and I'll see that there's like 3 people that have ever played it and put their scores in. And then I have to beat those scores, Erin.
That's great. Well, then you got to play the ones that we just opened because there's not many scores in
I know.
Pindigo for
Well, I'm
those.
heading over there to do some video, just a little here, show the
Cool.
new thing, the bathroom and everything, to do another one of those next week, I think. And because we're going to be under construction next week here.
Cool.
The whole front is getting renovated. And
Yeah.
it's going to be great because it's going to be thick plain glass and really keep the place cool.
Oh, that's great. And by the way, are there any new games that have arrived in Wormhole recently that kind of like come out of the vault?
Oh, out of the vault. Catacomb was at the vault. Catacomb came and then had some issues, and then we put it to the vault, and now it's playing pretty well.
Cool.
what else is coming from the vault? No, I would love Terrific Lake here. That would be
Yeah.
super
A
fun.
Catacomb is a cool one. I haven't gotten to play that yet, but I saw it in the last tournament when I was there.
Oh, you didn't get it in a bank?
No, I didn't. I didn't get
Oh,
lucky.
there you go. People are asking, when will we see another Learning to Flip episode?
Yeah, it's funny. I've made a few like pinball related videos recently, but they haven't been learning to flip branded because I was like
Right.
traveling, and I did one on like cool pinball places in LA when I was out there that I saw and things like that. So I need to make another like actual learning to flip. So hopefully soon. I'm really focused on this one. I normally do a lot of short form content. I'm trying to focus on some longer stuff, and I'm making
Good.
a video related to space pinball machine art and stuff. So that's been eating up my time, but I want to come back to some of those learning to flips. I'm sure if nothing else, there'll be some covering for Houston Arcade Expo.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, and that's coming up in
Less than 2 months.
less than 2 months. And then what's crazy is the whole next week I'm going to be in Chicago.
Y'all are insane. I don't know how you're doing it.
I don't know, but we're going to have fun.
Yeah,
I can see
absolutely.
that. All right. Well, thanks again, for everything you do for the Wormhole and everything you do for pinball. It's just been awesome. And this is a fun podcast. Thank you. I had to bring it to
Yes.
Heidi. I got nervous for Nate Shivers. When I get nervous, I call up Erin or Donovan.
I
And
love it. We're here for you, Jamie. So
so where can people find you online?
find me, well, doing bells and chimes streams for Wormhole on the Wormhole's Twitch and the occasional learning to flip on Wormhole. But when I make the rest of the time, I'm on all the social media platforms at Erin Winnick, ErinWinnick, mainly space and science content with an undercurrent of pinball.
I saw your on the Weather Channel. That was awesome.
Yes, I was. I got to talk about my ocean expedition I did earlier this year, so that was very cool.
They were geeking out with you. They really like you.
They were, yeah. They super get into like the science nerding out, which
Yeah,
those are my kind of people.
absolutely. All right, really exciting podcast coming up. In fact, I'm recording it today is Wednesday, so this will be out in 2 days. Tomorrow, I am recording a podcast. Well, it's really a round table. It's my first round table, Erin,
Yeah,
with an incredible guest list. Check this out. Co from Quarter Drop Arcade.
love it.
He's awesome, right? Rachel and Kale from Electric Bat Arcade.
Amazing. One of my favorite podcast episodes that you've done.
And Omoto Harney from Marco Pinball fame and Captain's Crazy Paradise.
Great.
Gulf
What a
York.
crew.
So what we're going to do is do a roundtable, and I plan on picking their brains on multiple topics, but really is getting their advice regarding our pinball expansion. So kind of a consulting board meeting here, although they're not getting paid, but maybe I'll give them some.
There you go. I love it.
So yeah, I've got that, and that'll be next. I'll release that next week. So, and
That'll be
then
a fun one.
Wedgehead Pinball the week after that.
Look at that. You're all set.
So I'm all set for September. I think we're in good shape. I have one more that I'm trying to get on schedule in September, and if that happens, that will be super, super fun. So, all right, I'm having the time of my life. I'm loving this, aren't you? Don't you love it?
It's so much fun. I appreciate you having me.
It's so great. Thank you so much, Erin. I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. And my sign off is don't be an a-hole, but I'll explain that one time of why we came up with don't be an a-hole.
Okay, sounds good, but not this time.
Not this time because we went long.
Okay, sounds good.
In a couple of weeks, where did don't be an a-hole come from? Because it is actually a funny story. So,
It is.
all
Cool.
right. Talk to you later.
Bye.